Are you tired of listening to all those boring podcasts out there? Then try our boring podcasts. Since 2007, Southsider Studios has been bringing you the best in podcast entertainment. You can download all of our fine podcasts on iTunes or on any podcatching services available. Southsider Studios. Excellence in podcasting. Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Hello, Cinesmackians, and welcome back to yet another matchup of movie versus movie here on Cinesmack. My name is Mike Keeler. I am your host and referee, and joining me today is Gabriel Rolwald.
Good evening. Are you ready for an extinction-level podcast?
Mark Johnson.
Hello, everybody.
Tom Haggis.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
Good. I'll answer you. And Mr. Sam Twomey is out searching the globe for more films to throw in the ring. So we have a stunt Sam with us. We have our first special guest, and I would like to introduce to you John Peterson.
Very pleased to be here.
John is an accomplished filmmaker and manager of all things awesome in Des Moines, mainly the Fleur Cinema and Cafe. So thanks for joining us, John.
I'm thrilled. This is going to be great.
All right. So before we get started, did you guys have fun with this?
No.
Define fun.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
This was my least favorite one we've done so far.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. Yeah. It was one of those exercises in, oh, man, this was way better. This is not as good as I remember it. You know, this was way better when I was younger, and yeah. So I didn't think things aged too well on any of them. So
Okay. All right.
I guess I'm not a fan of the whole end of the world genre or asteroid headed toward the Earth genre. I guess.
Mm-hmm. You just
So
don't-
I think I'm in Tom's boat there.
Gabe?
Yeah, well, you know, I can't say it was the most painful thing I've ever done. I did have a kidney stone one time, and that was pretty painful. But yeah, it's weird because, yeah, what do you do? Like, there's not many options when it comes to an asteroid approaching the Earth,
Right.
you know? So yeah. But I think this will be fun, actually. I think the discussion tonight will be fun.
Now, before, while I was thinking about this a couple weeks back, I was like, oh, we could have put Titan AE in with this. Tom or Mark, do you remember Titan AE? For anyone that hasn't seen Titan AE, don't. It's just a recommendation. But
who's in that? Is that like, it's a cartoon, right? And
it's animated. I don't even remember who's in
Is
it.
it like Brad
I
Pitt or
think
something?
Michael J. Fox was in that.
Was he?
Oh, really?
I think so.
We all have IMDb, but we're not going to check it. Michael J. Fox and Jerry Lewis and
Janine Garofalo?
Well, there's a reason not to see it.
yeah, hot off of what was that? Must Love Dogs, or what's the Cats and Dogs movie?
Hey, Matt Damon was in it.
Matt Damon.
And Damon.
and Tone Loc.
What? Tone
Tone
Loc was
Loc.
in it?
He played Tech, I guess.
He goes from Titan AE to playing Iowa State Fair. Go figure. Wasn't he
Right.
here a couple weeks back, or a couple years back?
I think he was here last summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
With Vanilla Ice or something, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
this stuff is
Better
off
and
my
better.
radar. This stuff's all off my radar. Sorry.
They did a free show, and like we went to go see it, and you couldn't even get within a mile of the stage. That's how packed it was. Like there were mullets everywhere.
Everyone loves the funky cold Medina.
Yeah,
you know?
they do.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, luckily, and also, people, I'm traveling, so if it sounds a little weird, I apologize. But I'm not in the studio space tonight, nor will I be tomorrow night for Full Body Cast. But I brought the monkey along with me.
Oh, well, thank goodness.
Yeah, thank God for the monkey, and thank God for his cage. So let's get this party started, huh?
Ladies and gentlemen, believers and non-believers, welcome to the main event. In the first corner, from 1998, directed by Mimi Letter, starring Robert Duvall, Téa Leoni, and Elijah Wood, Deep Impact. In the second corner, from 1998, directed by Michael Bay, starring Bruce Willis, Liv Tyler, and Ben Affleck, Armageddon!
All right, fellas, there we go. Who wants to go first? We're going to start out with writing. So who would like to start the... how'd you put it, Gabe? The extinction-level podcast?
Yes.
All right. Who wants to start it off right?
I'd be happy to, but I'm not going to start it off right.
Well, you're going to start it off with writing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. W-R-I-T-E. Very clever.
Right.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Tom.
One of the things that I really love, I love disaster movies. I mean, just wipe out the planet and I'll lay down $10 to watch it happen. It's really, I'm really intrigued to see, humans making choices when they're in peril and how our survival instinct impacts, our decision-making process. And what happens to humans when they're backed into a corner. And I think the one person I think that does this better than anybody else is Danny Boyle. All of his movies have some aspect of survival in them, and he does a really, really great job. The thing is that I sat down and watched Armageddon, and this thing that I really, really like about disaster movies was really not in Armageddon anywhere. There really wasn't, except for the last 5 minutes, and we all know what happens at the end. But this making a decision and putting everyone else before yourself, and what would you do if the chips were down and you had to fight for your own survival? And we didn't get to see any of that in Armageddon. It was just just a bunch of special effects. But Deep Impact, there was tons of that. So just based on that little bit of what I like to see in disaster movies, I would give my vote to Deep Impact for this one.
All right, so one for Deep Impact. Who would like to go next?
Oh, I'll go.
All right.
I don't know. In both of these films, the list of characters is so long, and no one character or person gets really a chance to shine or develop. I mean, you just basically have these like 3-stage archetypes that sort of play out and happen, and you kind of know how it's going to end. And but I kind of like I like Deep Impact better because they sort of had this sort of contingency plan type strategy and effects for if they don't destroy the asteroid headed towards Earth. And there's all this reactionary stuff. They'd attack it, then we'd have the contingency plan, and then they went after it again, and then there was a last-ditch effort. And with Armageddon, it just seemed like if Harry Stamper can't do it, then nobody can, was the attitude sort of taken on there. And it just seemed more like an action movie or a disaster film crammed into an action movie than a real sort of disaster film going on. So I choose Deep Impact, and it amazes me that it took like 4 writers to write Armageddon. I don't know why. And one of them is J.J. Abrams, and if anyone who knows me, I'm the biggest J.J. Abrams apologist, but I can't get around all the minds that went into into making something that was just, I don't know, it just seemed all over the place at times. So long story short, Deep Impact.
All right. John.
I'll go. I guess when trying to decide which one of these is better written, the question that comes to my mind is, does bad science equal bad writing? Because then yeah, they're both just so full of bad science. So I'm going to push that aside. When it comes to writing, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I have to give it to Armageddon, simply because, in terms of the script, Armageddon succeeded in what it tried to do more than Deep Impact succeeded in what it tried to be. Deep Impact tried to be a drama where it could have been a virus. It could have been the Earth was going to stop spinning and another ice age would occur. It could have been, any sort of thing happening where people knew, holy crap, in less than a year, there's a really, really good chance we're all going to be dead. And how do we deal with that? Mm-hmm. So, like, the idea of, it being an object hurtling towards Earth, was kind of incidental. It was the MacGuffin, right? And it was supposed to be a drama about people, and I just thought it failed. It failed in that respect. Whereas Armageddon was like, yeah, there's a big rock coming up, and we're going to blow it up, and Bruce Willis is going to save us all. And it was big and stupid and dumb, but it had no intentions beyond that. And so, just because it succeeded in what it tried to be, I got to give the writing to Armageddon.
All right. Gabe.
Interesting. Good points. And I agree with Mark in that both of these movies have just an incredible number of characters. And I think what that brings is an inability to kind of like really develop any of those characters to any meaningful extent. We don't really get to know any of these people. And I think in order for us to care that they're going to get wiped off the face of the earth by an impact from some, stellar object, we have to care about them a little bit. And I think both movies kind of, because they introduced so many different characters, both movies kind of failed in developing those characters and making us care about those characters. Like for instance, Stamper from Armageddon. All we know about him is that he's got kind of a hot temper and he's the best driller around. He's the best driller ever, and he never gives up. But how do we know that? Not because we ever saw that. Not because any of the other characters really validated that. Not because of what he does. We know that because he tells you that. He's the best driller ever. I've been drilling for 30 years and I've never, drilled on an asteroid. But I'm gonna succeed this time because I never give up. Because I tell you that I never give up. And I feel kind of the same way about the characters in Deep Impact. We don't really get to know any of them all that well. They're archetypes. Mm-hmm. They're just kind of it's kind of a surface, sketch of characters. So I don't think either of them really succeeded, and I think it was mostly because there were just too many characters to develop fully. But I'm actually going to have to do something that I didn't think I would do either, and I'm gonna have to go with Armageddon. I agree with John that from a writing standpoint, I found Armageddon more interesting, more fun, more compelling. But I have three words: melodrama. The writing was as melodramatic as I've ever seen. It was total melodrama, and I'm with Mark in that it's like, oh wow, that's J.J. Abrams. Yeah. I wonder what part he really played in that, because wow, it was early. He's got to get a start somewhere. But so I think in the end, from all science aside, I agree completely with John on that. From a writing standpoint, I think I enjoyed Armageddon better.
All right, Well, this is going to be fun. We're tied, fellas, so far, 2-2.
Nice.
As far as I tried finding some little fun, you may not know this about the writing. For Deep Impact, after discovering the comet, one of the astronomers is killed in a car accident. This mirrors the real-life car accident death of astronomer Eugene Shoemaker, who helped discover Shoemaker leaving 9. And he died in 1997 in Australia. And, where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Rockhound's line about sitting on 1 million pounds of fuel in Armageddon, built by the lowest bidder, is a variation of an actual radio transmission by Mercury astronaut Alan Shepard just prior to liftoff. So they were kind of working in some, I don't know.
Some nods to real scientists.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
To people that know what they're talking about.
Speaking of that crash, I thought it was interesting that both movies opened with some sort of vehicle clearly being loaded with C4. The Jeep and the space shuttle.
Yes.
In Armageddon. I thought that was an interesting parallel.
And if I may, I have to say my favorite line in my top 10. It's in my top 10 favorite movie lines of all time. Is I want to name it after my wife Dottie, because she's a vicious slice-sucking bitch from which there is no escape. I love that line.
Yeah.
I love it. So, all right, let's move on to acting. And Gabe, you went. Did you go last? So you'll go first this
yes.
time. All right.
Okay. All right, acting. Well, again, I'm not sure either of these is really stellar in the acting category, but one of the actors that stood out to me. Well, it's interesting because Deep Impact has both ends of the spectrum for me, because I thought Téa Leoni overall was pretty miserable. I can't say I've seen a lot of her movies before, so I can't say if it's a trend or she was just not that good in this movie. And because she's supposed to be at some point she's supposed to be a television news broadcaster who everybody knows and everybody and she just seems so stilted. It's like one of the biggest events in human history, and it's a really emotional thing, and she just didn't seem to have any emotion. They could have gotten an animated character, an animatronic, to do that. And I just didn't really think she was that good. But on the other hand, I can't understand it, but Robert Duvall to me is really very he's intoxicating on a certain level. I really like watching him. He's always compelling on the screen, no matter what he's playing. And I don't know that he ever really has that much range. I don't know that he plays a lot of characters that are all that different. But there's just something about him to me that's really very compelling. He didn't have a very big part. He didn't have a lot of work to do. But when he was on the screen, I enjoyed watching him. Mm-hmm. And the same goes for Morgan Freeman. Who wouldn't vote for Morgan Freeman for president? I mean, who wouldn't want Morgan Freeman to be president? I would watch him. I would watch the State of the Union address every year if he were the president. And I've always found, I've always found him fun to watch too. And as far as Armageddon goes, actually, I think the acting's pretty decent in Armageddon. I mean, they had an all-star lineup, and they had some kind of up-and-comers in it. And even she doesn't really have much to do, but even Liv Tyler is, she works. And I think overall, like across the board, I felt like the acting was better in Armageddon. It worked. In that context, I think it worked. So again, in the end, I can't even believe I'm saying it, but I feel like the acting overall was better in Armageddon.
All right, John.
Yeah. I have to agree with a lot of the points that Gabe made there. However, I think Téa Leoni just plays stilted really well. for whatever that's worth. I felt like there were so many moments in that movie where she was supposed to be like nervous and jittery and uncomfortable, and like it was either just brilliant, spot on casting because that's how she is, or I don't know. I totally agree with the Robert Duvall. Those were far and away the best scenes in the movie. From an acting standpoint. Was there much acting in Armageddon? It was hard to tell. When the camera doesn't stay on anyone's face for longer than 2.5 seconds, you
1.5 seconds.
Do a lot of acting. And so there we could talk about editing later, I suppose, but again, I felt like the actors in Deep Impact overall, what they were trying to do, or what they were trying to convey was deeper than in Armageddon. Man, this is difficult. I have to go with Deep Impact clearly because of Robert Duvall.
All right,
and I don't feel good about that.
So the whole movie rests on Robert Duvall's shoulders.
Well, yeah.
Well, if the fate of humanity can rest on his shoulders, that's surely a single movie can.
Although I gotta say this about even Bruce Willis, I love Bruce Willis in almost everything, but this was a movie that character that didn't have to be Bruce Willis. And in a lot of Bruce Willis movies, you can't really picture another actor playing that character. In this movie, I felt like that character it didn't utilize Bruce Willis, for lack of a better. You know what I mean? You want to like Bruce Willis, and you do like Bruce Willis, and you want to like this Harry Stanford, but you don't really have a reason to, other than he's the guy who everybody respects. He's not really likable. He's tough, and he loves his daughter, and I think we all enjoyed watching him shoot at Ben Affleck. But you know what I mean. I guess I was just disappointed. I don't know if that was Bruce phoning it in, or if that was just he didn't have much to work with there. But I was disappointed in that because I kind of I can't remember which one brought it up, but yeah, I haven't seen either of these movies since they first came out, and in my mind I remember it being much more fun, and I think just in my mind I kind of had John McClane on that asteroid, and that wasn't happening this time.
Yippee-ki-yay, asteroid.
Exactly. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
All right, Tom.
Watching Armageddon in particular, I'm just going to go ahead and, a spoiler alert here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of rip on Armageddon, and then I'll talk real briefly about Deep Impact and explain why Deep Impact gets my vote, because it didn't screw up as bad as Armageddon. Watching it, I started to get the idea that Michael Bay chooses his actors based on their ability to follow his direction and not ask too many questions. Just trust him on this. Megan Fox comes to mind. She's not in the third Transformers, is she?
No.
Yeah, because she questioned his direction. So I think it's not always bad, because Hitchcock had the same approach. He pretty much used actors as props, and he publicly said that the scene dressing and the costumes and the actors are all on the same level. They're just there to help him tell his story. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not saying that's good or that's bad, even though my vote at the end will say otherwise. Ben Affleck and Bruce Willis were at a point when Armageddon came out that they really weren't known for their acting skills that they've definitely honed, I think, in the last decade. I think their acting that they've done in the last 2-3 years is much better than anything than Armageddon. And if we didn't have Armageddon, we wouldn't have Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, which Bruce Willis signed up for as a deal for doing Armageddon with Disney. So, and that, okay, the acting in Deep Impact, yes, it's really melodramatic and it's very, tear jerky, but that's kind of one of the things I look for in a disaster movie. When I see the world ending, I want to see a little emotion out of humanity. Don't destroy the earth. That's where I keep all my stuff. So, I stole that off a T-shirt, by the way. I didn't make that up. So I guess I'm going to give it to Deep Impact, but it's really close because yes, Téa Leoni was not fantastic. To be honest, I've seen a lot of Robert Duvall stuff, and I didn't even think this stuff in Armageddon was really that good. I'm trying to think of a performance in either of these movies that I thought was really good. Oh boy, Billy Bob Thornton was pretty good in Armageddon. I thought I really got the feeling that he enjoyed doing the movie and he had a lot of fun with it. And sometimes when you see an actor of that caliber, and again, Billy Bob Thornton's much bigger now than he was when the movie came out, but you get an idea of an actor being very bored with the role and just going through the motions. But Billy Bob Thornton, he just jumped in there and chewed scenery, and I am now talking myself out of Deep Impact for my vote. Wow, I'm going to regret this on the final tally, but you know what? Billy Bob Thornton wins it. I'll give it to Armageddon.
All right. Wow.
So the spoiler alert wasn't really a spoiler alert.
No, I went M. Night Shyamalan on you.
It's a twist.
Twist ending.
It's a twist.
All right, Mark.
You know what? Everyone's had really, really great points. And you know what? It's funny. Deep Impact and its melodramaticness, if that's a word, lends itself to better acting, right? Mm-hmm. But I find myself like wanting to hang out with the people on Armageddon. I mean, who doesn't want to hang out with Bruce Willis and Billy Bob Thornton and Ben Affleck and freaking Owen Wilson? I mean, they just seem like a fun group to be around, but that isn't necessarily great acting. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I don't know. And Steve Buscemi's performance when they got on the asteroid really bugged me for some reason. I mean, his space dementia bit just made me feel awkward through the whole thing. I don't know what it was. Like I'm sure he was supposed to provide some sort of comic relief, but that really didn't work for me.
It was almost like it happened too quick. Like there was no like leading up to it. It was just bam, he's got space dementia.
Right, and maybe going back to the writing.
Just real quick, Mark. I was reading in the trivia that after he was firing the gun and everything, they wrapped him up in duct tape. That's actual NASA procedure. They have duct tape on there to restrain anyone that happens to go a little, or well, not crazy, but just needs to be restrained. They have duct tape on board. That's actual procedure. So go ahead.
Inspired by this movie, I'm sure.
Yeah.
As are most of NASA's procedures now.
Well, they say if you can't duck it, All right. So I don't know. Like I said, Deep Impact lends itself to giving you better performances from their actors. And I got to ask, where was the Robert Duvall love when we were talking about True Grit? And I'm like, hey, he was Lucky Ned Pepper, and like I couldn't get anybody on board on the Robert Duvall camp then. But that's good enough. The subject. Elijah Wood really creeped me out in Deep Impact. Like I think he creeped me out more than he did in Sin City, and that's saying something.
I was going to bring that up.
I mean, he just. Wow, I don't think he blinked. First of all, and he's the guy who sort of helped discover the meteor, and he's like, oh, I can get my teenage girlfriend's family in because I'm going to marry her at a young age, and the government owes me a favor, so I'm going to get that. Just everything about that just seemed weird. But you got to hang your hat on Robert Duvall because he just you'd go to bat for that guy. I mean, everyone, Bruce Willis told you that he never let anyone down, but like Robert Duvall actually sort of walked the walk in Deep Impact. I felt, and I don't know. I like Jon Favreau and Morgan Freeman, like Gabe talked about. Yeah, so my pick's Deep Impact.
All right. So I can put that tally mark back by Deep Impact for acting. All right. Just real quick, I guess Liv Tyler turned down the role of Grace twice before finally accepting. And let's see. There was another one I had here. Oh, Joshua Colwell, who played one of the NASA officials in Mission Control, was also a technical advisor on the film. And that one's for Deep Impact. But yeah, there you go. Fun little stuff for acting. Let's move on to directing. And we'll start it off with John.
Oh, boy. Well, Armageddon had the most directing.
What? What? Is that what we're calling? Is that what we're calling directing now? Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I just mean in terms of camera moves and calling cut and calling, clear the set, fire in the hole. That kind
Fire
of stuff.
I respectfully bite my tongue until it's my turn. Go ahead.
Again, it's two different movies. We're talking about a drama and an action movie. You have to give it to Deep Impact. No doubt. Despite the script shortcomings, despite the mediocre acting, it was far and away the better directed movie. Simply because it at least made an attempt to rely on the acting, on the characters, as opposed to relying on fast editing and swelling music and Aerosmith. Jesus Christ, Aerosmith. And explosions. There are 4 Aerosmith songs in this movie. 4 Aerosmith songs. Actually, okay, I want to point this out. Okay. Deep Impact. Okay. Let's see. Armageddon is to Aerosmith what Deep Impact is to MSNBC. I think that's a fair comparison.
I like that. I'm gonna have to put that in the show notes.
Yeah. So anyway, while Deep Impact didn't need. There were dramatic moments. And I thought, like 2 or 3 actually, very, well done, dramatic moments, little bits, where we didn't need, the melodrama. And I guess you got to hand that to the directing, although there were, obviously a few things, in Deep Impact, which you do lay at the feet of the director as just being, what, are you kidding me? I think my favorite moment was on the jam-packed highway as everybody is driving away from the East Coast. Mm-hmm. You actually see a guy on a skateboard weaving his way through traffic. I just thought that was, that's ridiculous. I mean, yeah, okay. And that's the director. The director clearly said, we need a guy on a skateboard. Anyway,
Michael Bay would have had him blow up.
Well, right, or be a rocket skateboard. So let's go directing Deep Impact.
All right, let's go to Mark.
Oh boy. I almost don't even know where to begin. I feel like this is a referendum on Michael Bay coming up. I don't. His movies just sort of, in general, to me, always seem like a half hour too long. I think the average Michael Bay running time is like 2.5 hours, and that's exactly what Armageddon is. It's 150 minutes, and with some of the visual effects laden action scenes in Armageddon, as well as his other movies, I feel just sort of lie there. They're not a result, it's not because of a rise in the action and the story. They're just like, okay, now we're just going to blow stuff up. And I I'm all for explosions. I like watching. I'm a pyromaniac. I like fire, so I like explosions. But watching it on film, it just doesn't. If it doesn't lend itself to being part of the story, it just sits there dead. And a big thing for me was that I noticed that the 40-minute mark of Deep Impact was when they were blasting off into space, and in Armageddon it was after the hour mark. And I know that's just a 20-minute difference, but I felt like Deep Impact sort of got the ball rolling on the story quicker than Baited and Armageddon. And all the visual effects scenes of Deep Impact were sort of appeared at the climax, or there was a building up to those moments where the visual effects came in, and they actually lended themselves to the story. Where as in Armageddon, it's just like, okay, it's been 15-20 minutes. We need more explosions. So I could go on, but I just feel like I'd be bashing Michael Bay, and I don't want it to turn into that. So I'm just gonna go with Deep Impact.
All right, Deep Impact it is. Gabe.
Yeah, well, how can you talk about Michael Bay and not talk about explosions? I mean, everybody has mentioned this already. But yeah, and I wish I had a sound effect. I would just play an explosion and be done, because that's what Michael Bay does. But really, I'm not kidding. Even the beginning titles of Armageddon explode. Yeah, the title Armageddon is, I think, right now. Maybe it's appropriate considering the subject of the movie, but it's just like, really? I mean, he can't even wait till the movie starts. And then, I like moving camera. I like things to be visually interesting, but I would like to see a shot in a Michael Bay movie where the camera is not moving. And I think sometimes you can use that to kind of create some sort of contrast and bring more attention to a moment by making it very still. But he can't do it. The camera's always it doesn't just move, it swirls. The camera is always flying around people. It's always going in some giant arc around people, and you're seeing everything from every angle, and it's just like disorienting most of the time. And it's just like, okay, it's a little too much. I mean, granted, it's an action movie, but man, my senses are overloaded, and it's just a little too much. And it hasn't really, as far as I can tell, it hasn't really changed much over time either. He's got kind of the same. It's kind of the same things in all his movies, the same gimmicks. It's always kind of, okay, we're working for Michael Bay. Bring the dollies and the C4, and we're ready to go. So obviously, I'm kind of condemning Michael Bay too, and we knew this would happen. And
I knew it was coming.
Yeah, and I'm not. He's not the worst director in the world, and I have to say that his movies are entertaining.
Sorry, fake cough, my bad.
Yeah, now Deep Impact I thought was interesting. My very first thought was this has got to be a Spielberg movie. It had a very Spielberg kind of E.T. kind of feel to it somehow. To me, it was Spielberg-esque, and then I realized he was one of the producers. He was like an executive producer, so that doesn't surprise me very much. And then partway through, I also kind of felt like this seems like a TV series. Like this is the 2-hour premiere to a TV series. Like it's just getting going, and we're going to get to see all the stuff about like all the people living in the caves in Missouri or whatever. And we're going to get to see them repopulating the earth and, cleaning up after this disaster. And so at some point I felt like, oh, this is very TV movie to me. And it turns out she directed actually a lot of TV movies, so I guess that wouldn't be surprising. I mean, that's kind of her thing. She's done a lot of TV movies. But yeah, I do feel like, I don't know. I think it's really close. It's so close. Because I don't feel like the directing was particularly strong in Deep Impact.
Explosions.
Yeah, and there were a few of those. There were a few explosions to satisfy my need for that, and I think in the end, I think directing wise, Deep Impact would be my choice.
All right, Tom. I saved you for last.
All right, so I'm gonna lay off Michael Bay for just a minute. All right, I just want to talk about like the basic difference between good storytelling and bad storytelling. Not movies or books or anything like that. Just sitting at a bar, having a beer, and listening to somebody tell a story. All right, and everybody's done this. You've heard somebody tell a really great story where all you have to do is just sit there, and the storyteller knows what details you need to know to enjoy the story, to get all of the subtle nuances that make it a great story. A bad storyteller just kind of spills their guts and throws stuff at you all over your face, and you're sitting there and you have to work your butt off to figure out, wait, I'm sorry, are you still on the bus at this point? Because I'm sorry, I've lost track because you're a crappy storyteller. One of these is Michael Bay. Okay, but I mean, it's not like he tries to be a bad storyteller, but his movies are less stories and more like collections of cool shots. 90% of them are slow-mo of people looking up for some reason, and the other 10%. And the other 10% are scantily clad girls. Note girls, not women. And what I find interesting, what I find most interesting about it is the people that defend Bay say that there's a place for Michael Bay, that I just want to go to the movie and be entertained. I don't want to have to think about it. I just want to enjoy a good movie, a little escapism. When I watch a Michael Bay movie, I am physically and mentally drained from having to figure out what the hell is going on. I watched Transformers recently, and the fights are just the screen is just filled with metal, and I don't even know which piece of metal belongs to who and what's going on. And I understand why he doesn't really like establishing shots, because it will show where those 14 cameras he uses at the same time is.
Holy crap. It's a good thing I'm on the first floor of this hotel.
Look, when you average 1.5 seconds per shot over 2.5 hours.
Damn it, you stole my fact.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I did my research. This is not just all opinion. But the average shot in Armageddon is 1.5 seconds. That is not good directing. That is brilliant editing. That I can't imagine these editors are just this pile of footage that Michael Bay would drop off every day and say, here, make a story out of it. There were 3 editors on this movie, and that's not commonplace. A lot of directors have editors that they use, and it's just one guy that is the primary editor. But Michael Bay uses 3 because, I don't know, 2 of them off themselves or something. But just the workload. I mean, one editor would obviously be burned out on it. So, and I really, really like Bad Boys. Bad Boys was the first Michael Bay movie I saw, and I really, really, really liked it. And I was like, this is a fun movie, The camera movements are good and the action scenes are really good. But then I saw Armageddon. I'm like, oh, it's Bad Boys with an asteroid. And then I saw Transformers. Like, oh, it's Bad Boys with toys I used to like. And it just was a rehash of the same thing and the same scenes. And I mean, I thought the scene on the Mir space station, I thought a really good scene, because he was able to take those scenes and go back to NASA, and they used kind of the little graph to show you where the 2 guys are inside the space capsule, where the fire was, and I was like, hey, look I know what's going on. And I just wish he would have applied that to, the rest of his, what's the word I'm looking for, career. Now, Mimi Leader on Deep Impact, you guys had mentioned that she's a TV movie director. She has a lot of experience in TV, and I got that too. And I don't really want to give it to her, but giving it to Michael Bay after everything I said makes me feel weird. and this isn't just building up over the last month since I started processing all this. This has been building up for the last 13, 14 years. So I want to thank everybody for letting me get that off my chest.
Wow.
I remember.
Better?
I remember at work we used to kind of go back and forth about Bay. We had a few lifted. Go ahead.
I just want to add something real quick. The 1.5 seconds per shot. Mm-hmm. It just gives me the sense that he relies heavily on his DP or multiple DPs and his editors. It's almost like he doesn't trust his actors or the script.
Yes.
With that attitude, and it just sort of makes the experience sort of lopsided. You sort of want the acting and the story and the direction to all sort of work in unison. And watching his movies, you almost don't get that one side trusts the other, and I think that can throw an audience off.
I can see that. Yeah. Just does anyone have anything else they want to add about directing before I go on with the little fun facts?
One quick thing. I when you were talking about that scene on the space station where he flips on the locators, I can't remember where I saw this. It might have been in an interview or a commentary or something, but Michael Bay talking about how the original cut of that scene didn't have those locators, and how he was watching that scene and he got confused as to where everybody was. So he went back and added that bit, added the personal locators.
Is that true?
I'm recalling that from some interview with him. It might have been like something on the DVD commentary or the old.
I want that to be true so bad.
Yeah, but what I think is really funny about that is that then just like personal locate, like what in their belly buttons, or because like you look at that scene and they're all like they're not in their spacesuits. They're just kind of like wearing like T-shirts and pants. It's weird. And so like then you think, okay, so then when they're on the asteroid and they can't find AJ, flip on the frickin' personal locators. Okay.
All right. For Armageddon, the shuttle launches were filmed for real. They were allowed to put 16 cameras all around the the launch site, and the camera on the launch pad shook so hard, and it says 25 G, so I don't know if it received 25 Gs or I have no idea, that all the screws fell out of the lens and it had to be returned to Panavision in a box of pieces and was put back together. Michael Bay makes a director cameo in the movie as an NASA scientist, shown after Carl asked to name the asteroid Dottie. This one's for who was it? This one's for John. The first movie to prominently place MSNBC as the main journalistic station in the film.
There you go.
And Steven Spielberg was originally interested in directing, so maybe that's why he stayed on as a producer. And Morgan Freeman wanted his character to be wearing an earring. Director Mimi Leader turned him down. Later, we see the president addressing the nation from the Oval Office. His sleeves are rolled up, and one of Freeman's tattoos is showing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the director liked this. She felt it gave the president an everyman look. So,
urban look.
I almost feel like I just need to go to the bar and drink. After that, let's go. Let's go on to overall. And we will start off with Tom.
All right. Well, I'm gonna say, like I said before, I really love disaster movies. Neither of these are even in my top 10. I mean, they're barely, quote unquote, good disaster movies. I don't know if this is because I can hear myself. I don't know if this is because because we've been trying to top these two movies for 15 years almost. Mm-hmm. And if you think of all of the great special effects spectacles that have come out in the last 15 years, these two movies haven't aged all that well. The special effects, there are moments of brilliance, but really, when shots are a minute or second and a half each, I mean, how good does a special effect have to be to last a second and a half? I mean, it's 9 p.m. right now. I'm pretty sure I could whip out a pretty good special effect shot that lasts a second and a half here, before I go to bed. I just, they were really good back then, but they didn't age very well. What I've also noticed when I was watching them is that they put so much time and effort into the big special effects scene, the comet hitting the ocean, and the destruction scenes, that there were very basic special effects scenes that they just didn't even spend much time on. The end of Armageddon when the shuttle lands it looks like a junior high school film project. I mean, it's all boxy, and I mean,
when they're looking out of the cockpit, right? When they're looking through the cockpit window.
No, the kind of the press spot where they always watch the shuttle land off the side of the runway, and the shuttle kind of comes down. When it actually touches down, it looks like. I mean, I know that they just took shuttle footage and painted over it in the computer, but that's what it looks like. But even worse than that, on Deep Impact. I'm sorry, the caffeine's starting to kick in. The comet hitting the ocean is really, really great. But then later on, when Helen Hunt Jr. and Frodo are sitting under the tree talking about getting married,
Helen Hunt Jr.
It's true. It's totally true.
Why haven't those two been in a movie yet together? I've never understood that. I thought that was a natural pairing. But when they're sitting under the tree and the sun's setting and they're talking about getting married, it's like the worst green screen I've ever seen in my life. I'm looking at it, I'm like, you guys couldn't find a tree and a sunset? I mean, what? How hard was it to do that? And if you're going to do a special effect, I mean, make it believable. That was just really, really off. And I thought that was interesting that they put so much time into the big shots and then completely blew it on shots that should have taken half an hour. Anyways, that was my special effects thing. I kind of stuck that in the overall section, but overall, I'd have to give it to Deep Impact because, we in the past couple of shows we've talked about which one am I going to come back and watch again, and the answer for this is I'm not going to watch either one of these ever again. I mean, I'm 34, so what I got? I only got like 45, 50 years left. I'm not going to waste any of it watching either of these ever again. But I'd give it to Deep Impact just because it kind of has what I'm looking for in a disaster movie, even though it doesn't do it very well. If I do, I think I'll probably go back and watch the Mir space station scene again in Armageddon because I really like that scene and it's really good. But overall, the catastrophic scenes at the end of Deep Impact are definitely worth catching again, and even they are starting to age a little bit. That water isn't as good as they would be if they did it now. So I give my final vote to Deep Impact.
All right, Gabe.
Yeah, well, it's a close one for me. I enjoyed them both for different reasons. I believe it was John earlier who mentioned that they're really actually very different movies. That I wouldn't even put them in the same genre, to tell you the truth, other than the disaster part. Armageddon is all out action movie. It's it may as well be a war movie. We're battling this asteroid that's coming toward the Earth. It's a fight. Whereas Deep Impact is definitely more of a drama. It's more about the human reaction to this catastrophic event that's about to happen. So it's really kind of hard to compare them on a certain level. I think I don't know. I think I'm a little bit with Tom in that I don't know that I would choose to watch either of these again. But if I were forced to, I don't know. I think it would have to be Deep Impact. I think overall, I think, to be a little bit punny, I think Deep Impact had a little deeper impact on me than Armageddon did. Because of the human element of it. I'm not sure it was all too terribly believable. But I liked how they addressed some of the issues, the human issues that might result from impending doom. Things like, okay, hey, we're freezing prices, we're putting martial law into effect. There's a curfew. any kind of crime is going to be punished quickly and severely, kind of controlling the panic. And I really liked how they kind of addressed that, whereas in Armageddon they didn't even address it at all. And I also like the idea that even when, with all this technology and all this power that we have, we're still human and we still fail. And so, like in Deep Impact, it was a happy ending, but it wasn't an entirely happy ending. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Armageddon, yeah, of course they're gonna, we know they're gonna blow up the comet and it's gonna split in two and it's just gonna barely miss the Earth, and whew, boy, are we lucky, Whereas in Deep Impact, I thought it was a little bit more realistic in that, they kind of succeeded, but not entirely. And so I think overall, I just felt I felt that Deep Impact was more satisfying to me.
All right, Mark.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna be picking between the lesser of two evils with this, and that's gonna be Deep Impact. But just going back and rewatching these movies kind of made me question the whole decade of the 1990s and why in the world would studio heads want to put out competing Meteor Headed Towards Earth movies out in the same summer, like 7 weeks apart? Mm-hmm. Virtually, these movies came out, and Deep Impact they spent $75 million on, and Armageddon I think was like $135 million. And were we just a nation calling out for end of the world movies? I don't know. That just kind of bugs me. But you know what? I own Armageddon. You go back to the rewatchability thing. I own Armageddon, but that has a lot to do with the gag reel on the Armageddon or the Criterion disc, which is like on the Mount Rushmore of like DVD extras all time. I mean, you have Billy Bob Thornton acting as Carl from Sling Blade during the scenes instead of his character in the movie.
And for anyone that hasn't seen it, I posted it on our Facebook page, so you guys can go watch it.
It is phenomenal, and I think that weighs on my overall opinion of the film, because I think about the gag reel and almost enjoy that more than I do watching the movie. So I might have said Deep Impact before. You know what? Screw it. I picked Deep Impact for all the other ones. I'm going to go with Armageddon overall.
All right.
Why not? The world's coming to an end.
All right. Last but not least, John.
I think what's really interesting here is we've got a case of too much versus not enough. Armageddon was just way too much. The movie could have been trimmed by like 45 minutes. I kept thinking about what was that called? The Phantom Edit that they did with episode 1. You could really make a cool, tight edit of Armageddon by cutting out about 45 minutes here and there. I think you could really have a lot of fun with it.
Same with Revenge of the Fallen, by the way.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
If you just take out the Aerosmith cues, you get down to 2 hours.
Easy. Whereas Deep Impact was not enough. It was almost too ambitious. You kind of had you had the impending doom, and then you had sort of 3 storylines going on about who was you had the Tay Leone character, you had the Elijah Wood character, and you had Robert Duvall's character. All how is this impacting? Thank you. All 3 of these all 3 of these characters, and unfortunately you couldn't you couldn't care about any of these people when you're looking at all 3 of these stories and all of their relationships with all of their peripheral characters. What I think would have been really, really interesting is what if Deep Impact was made into like a 6 or 8 part HBO miniseries? Mm-hmm. I think that could be really cool. Because they find out that this thing is coming like a year in advance, and so you can imagine 22, 24 hours of television really getting deep. Sorry, into these into these characters' lives, and how do they deal with this impending doom, and obviously that's what they were going for, and I think that's why I found Deep Impact so disappointing, is because that's what they tried to do, and that's what it could have been. It could have been a really, really great story about what do we value when the end is near. How do we behave? What's important, what's not. These really big questions. Whereas Armageddon, again, going back to it, it did exactly what it intended to do. It intended to Michael Bay gave us a big, loud, ridiculous cartoon, and that's exactly what he wanted to do. And so, in that sense, it succeeded. And this is hard. I will never watch Armageddon again. I will probably not watch Deep Impact again. But it hurts more that Deep Impact was as bad as it was. I guess you expect Armageddon to be bad. Maybe this is all hindsight after watching Transformers and The Island, and so. Oh, jeez, this is painful, but I gotta give it to Armageddon.
All right.
Simply based on the disappointment factor, the potential. You had potential, Deep Impact.
Hey, can I throw a quick question out there?
Sure.
What in your mind? What's more improbable, that they would be able to drive an armadillo from one side of a comet, or an asteroid from one side of the asteroid to the other, or that Armageddon would get a release on Criterion?
Wow.
How did that happen? Does anybody know the backstory? There's got to be something fishy going on there.
I don't know. I have no idea.
It was a real slow year for movies for Criterion, and they're like,
Yeah. I would imagine there was so much material available.
Yeah, that could be.
Criterion went, wow, you've got all this stuff, let's do it.
Well, then I have a movie or two that's going to get a Criterion.
Now, Mark, I want to bring up one quick fact for you. The reason I think they put out two competing asteroid movies, End of the World, because, that was right off of Shoemaker Levy 9. Was it not? Wasn't it a couple years before that we watched a comet impact Jupiter?
Oh, I don't know.
So,
maybe we did.
Yeah, and back then, studios kind of, boy, I can't believe I'm saying this now. Well, they kind of took their time trying to get stuff going, and I don't know, compared to now where it's just remake and reboot everything. But didn't they do that? Haven't they done like the whole magician competing films? It wasn't The Illusionist and oh man, I can't even believe the
Nolan film,
Prestige. The Prestige.
Yes.
They kind of came out in the same year, didn't they?
Yeah, those two are I see a future Cinesmack for.
Yes, I would love to do that. But I don't know. What's your guys' favorite disaster film? That's my question. While I try to figure this math out, is what's your favorite disaster flick?
Does Twister count?
Twister counts.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, I'd have to go Twister just because.
Okay.
I've lived in Nebraska my whole life, and I'm completely fascinated by them. So,
okay.
As bad as that movie was, when you start digging into it, I really that one's got repeatability for me.
There's one shot in that film that just gives me goosebumps every time that I see it, and I'm like, I want to recreate that shot, and that's when you first see Bill Paxton driving the Dodge, and the camera just flies up to the car, and there's even a crop dusting plane that goes between that and the truck. I love that shot, and it stays on him for a while too. And I know it's probably a helicopter, but I just that really captivated me when I first saw that. So, how about Gabe, Mark?
Mine might be a different Bill Paxton film. It was this, sort of small indie art house film called Titanic from 1997. Don't know if anyone saw it. I don't mean to be all snooty and everything, but
That was my
the
pick.
last hour or so was that was good stuff.
All right.
Huh.
Gabe?
Yeah. There's always at least one question that I'm absolutely not prepared for whatsoever. I should have been prepared for this, but yeah, I don't. God, I don't know. I'm gonna actually have a gag pick. I'm gonna pick The Day After Tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah, but it's a gag pick because I just that movie rivals the terribleness, for lack of a better term, of the movies we've been talking about tonight. I just couldn't believe. I saw that it was on HBO, so fortunately I got to see it for, mostly free, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'm like, really, this is really happening. They're really doing this in this movie, and they're serious about it too.
Then you haven't seen 2012, have you?
I have not.
Oh,
no,
man.
my dad had told me about that one, but I hadn't actually ever seen it.
I have to say, I enjoyed it. I went in knowing what it was going to be, and I enjoyed my experience with it. But yeah, it's you just have to watch it. Just watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, surely, the Sci-Fi Channel probably has some really, really excellent ones. I picked up a list, and here's one that I'd like to see, called Ice Twisters.
Oh, I've actually seen parts of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's also Twisters in New York or Tornadoes in New York. There's also Atomic Twister, and there's also a Bruce Campbell film that came out right after Twister, and it was
Night of
the Twisters.
Night of the Twisters.
I think, isn't that it, John? Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. I when Twister was released into theaters, I was actually working at Blockbuster Video, and Night of the Twisters was an immediate straight-to-video at the time as a way of simply fooling, and which now actually you see quite a bit of that. That sad, sneaky-handed tactic.
Was it Transmorphers?
Transmorphers.
Yeah, and The Day the Earth Stopped. Yeah, they're on Netflix. Look them up. We're going to do a couple of those. It's going to be fun, I think.
Battle for Los Angeles?
Yes, Battle for Los Angeles. Did you guys see the clip from that? The awesome clip of the alien throwing back the grenade and the and the soldier rolling
somebody's
from
backyard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. All right, well, I'm going to poke the monkey here. I'm going to make him do his job. Here we go.
The winner by mass extinction, Deep Impact.
Ooh, I didn't like that.
I don't feel good about that.
It was, just to let you guys know, it was 10-6. What kind of swayed it in the way of Deep Impact was the directing. You guys were tied. tied in everything else except for.
Well,
the directing.
I think we're all planning on going out in public tomorrow. I mean, we're not going to pick Michael Bay and then expect to go outside.
So, yeah.
Isn't this just two boxers and one just finally fell over?
Yeah, pretty much.
Isn't that what just happened
Yeah,
here?
pretty
the
much.
other is crawling back to his corner.
Yep. All right, so this is the part of the show where we go with recommendations. I hope you fellas came with some recommendations this week. Well, this month. Who has the first recommendation? I'll ask the person who came with it. Nobody.
I have one.
Oh,
I've got
okay.
one.
All right, let's start with Gabe.
Okay. Well, I had a friend suggest a movie called Fur to me the other day, and it was really a very interesting movie. It's basically an imaginary portrait of a real person, a photographer named Deanne Arbus, and she starts out kind of as her like the helper to her husband, who's a well-known photographer. Mm-hmm. But she gains an interest in photography herself and finds herself interested in kind of kind of strange, underground kind of people, and she is played by oh boy, not I always do this. I always draw a blank when I do this. I can think of the other character is played by Robert Downey Jr. Aussie. What's her name? Nicole Kidman. Nicole Kidman. Yeah, she's played very well and very, very compellingly by Nicole Kidman. And Robert Downey Jr. plays a character who has a lot of hair, thus the name Fur. And actually, he's very good in it. He's very compelling, and I really enjoyed the acting, the story, the cinematography, and it just was really a great movie.
All right, John.
These two movies kind of got me thinking about the end of the world, and sort of got to think about what I was going to do for a recommendation. I was thinking an end of the world kind of movie, and one of my favorite post-apocalyptic movie is this tiny little indie film released in 1998 called Six String Samurai.
Oh,
you know this, good. Yes. It's a crazy little movie. It's kind of a samurai movie. It's kind of a musical, kind of. It's basically it's at some undisclosed point in the future, nuclear holocaust has occurred, and the United States is a barren wasteland. Mm-hmm. The United States is ruled by Elvis. He's still alive. And he rules from Las Vegas, which has been changed to Lost Vegas. And rumor has spread throughout the land that the king is dead. And so all of these musicians basically are working their way to Las Vegas to take over the throne. And the character that we follow, his name is Buddy. He's kind of a Buddy Holly type figure. He's walking across the United States, or what's left of it, in order to take over the throne of the king, and of course, deals with the various post-apocalyptic hazards therein. Roving bands of what do you call them? Hordes of hoarders. Marauders, that's the word I'm looking for. As well as Death keeps stalking him, and Death looks spot on, like Slash from Guns N' Roses. It's fantastic. It's a lot of fun. It's really cool. It looks like it was made for about $9, but like really, well spent $9. I highly recommend it.
All right, Tom, that's a good pick, by the way.
That was a really good pick. My pick is a film by Giuseppe Tornatore. He is an Italian director that did Cinema Paradiso, and if you're listening to my voice and you love movies and you haven't seen Cinema Paradiso, that's not my pick, but you need to see it, because there's no movie that's a better love letter to movies than Cinema Paradiso. But my pick is one he did several years later with Tim Roth in the lead role, and it's called The Legend of 1900. And it's basically the story of an infant is left on a cruise ship at the turn of the century, January 1st, 1900. And it's abandoned on the ship, and it's raised by the crew, and he never leaves the boat is basically the whole idea of it. And it's how he explores love and this God-given talent to play the piano, which is really amazing to listen to. All from the confines of this boat. And, you watch the entire movie. It's all told through flashback of his friend who's looking for him. And it's a really, really great movie. If anyone thinks that Tim Roth's best work is stuff that he did with Tarantino, not true. The best work he did was with Tornatore, because this is really, really great. So I'd say Legend of 1900, check it out.
All right. Mark?
Nice.
And just to kind of piggyback what Tom was talking about, I watched Cinema Paradiso for the first time last September, I believe, and it's very much like Tom says. It's a great love letter to the movies, and I was pleased to see that episode of The Simpsons sort of spoofed the end of Cinema Paradiso in one of their episodes from this season. So that was kind of a cool homage they paid. Did you see that, Tom?
I did not. I'm going to start looking for it. How long ago was that?
Oh, it's from this last season.
Hey, Mark, Simpsons did it.
Simpsons did it.
Do the Google.
Do the Google. All right. I'd never come prepared with my pick, like ever.
You never know it's coming either.
Yeah, I know. It only happens every single show. You
Yeah.
think I'd be prepared. So I'm going with a, in case of emergency, break glass pick. And I'm going with a TV show that was created by a Matthew Weiner. It's called Mad Men. It's... We're currently in the middle of like a 17-month hiatus for this show because there was a little contract dispute about who should get paid how much for making this fine piece. But it's coming to Netflix Instant Watch next month in July, and I would really recommend people checking it out. Now, honestly, a TV show about ad executives from the 1960s who live in New York wasn't a great selling point for me when I first started this journey of watching this show, and but what I witnessed was maybe the best pilot of a TV show I've ever seen. After 45 minutes, I just sat there stunned, thinking, "This is a show. I get to watch more of this." And it's really about the descent of the main character, Don Draper. He leaves a creative team at an ad agency, and he drinks and smokes constantly, and he's married with 2 kids at home, and he has numerous women on the side. But he's super awesome at his job, and even though he he has this despicable sort of backstory, for some reason you just pull for him because he's just so awesome. He is what Harry Stamper claims that he is. You actually see it played out, and it's
He's
hard.
the best driller in town.
He's the best driller in town.
Wow.
He's
could say
laid a
that.
lot of pipe.
Well done.
He's laid a lot of pipe.
He's making a deep impact.
Yes. So it's probably a safe pick, but again, it's sort of going to experience a reemergence next month on Netflix. So I would recommend people check it out.
All right. Well, mine is kind of related to what John was saying about end of the world type, disaster movie. And we kind of discussed Twister a little bit, so this all kind of ties together. I am a huge fan of the Discovery Channel Storm Chasers show. And if you guys have never seen it, they follow around this like 3 groups of storm chasers. One is going around. He has all this high-tech equipment, has this huge... they're doing this huge like Doppler radar truck, and they have like 19 of them. They're part of this huge experiment. There's another guy that sells these videos that he gets to news stations, and he has a bunch of meteorological stuff on his car to help get wind speeds, all this and that. And then there's this filmmaker. I can't remember the guy's last name. It's Casey. His last name's Casey, I think. And he has a tank. He basically took a big Dodge truck and built a tank out of it, and it's called the TIV, the Tornado Intercept Vehicle. And he's an IMAX filmmaker, and his dream is to drive this into the middle of a tornado and get the shot. Well, the film came out, and it's in IMAX, and it's narrated by Bill Paxton. So
Nice.
I saw it.
A lot of Bill Paxton in our picks tonight.
Exactly.
Nice.
I saw it last week in Chicago, and it was phenomenal. I loved it, and it could be because I love that show. And Sean Casey is the guy's name, and I really like him, and I like his drive and his motivation. I can kind of relate to it. But he has this huge armored vehicle that he drives into the middle of a tornado and gets his shot. But yeah, just check it out. It's really good. It's really well done. I'd recommend it. That's why I'm saying I'd recommend it.
Nice.
So let me see. Bring up my notes. As usual, we would appreciate if you guys could leave us some reviews on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. Thank you to anyone that has left us some reviews on iTunes. You can contact us at cinesmac@gmail.com. If you disagree with the bay bashing that went on here, this episode, or if you agree with it, let us know. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. Visit our little part of the Webernets at cinesmack.wordpress.com. And next episode, we will have another special guest on while Sam is still gone on his walkabout. And it's going to be Steven Spielberg and his little extraterrestrial E.T. getting into the ring with J.J. Abrams. And I don't even know what kind of creature it is yet, but J.J. Abrams Super 8. And so you guys can go catch it while it's out and then listen to the podcast and see if you agree with us. Real quick, Ron recorded something for us before we go, and I just want to play it for you guys.
Armageddon the f*** out of here.
There you go. He couldn't resist. So, for Mark, real quick, I want to thank John for joining us. It's been awesome. Hope you had fun.
I did. Thank you so much, guys.
All right, good. And if you're listening to us and you live in Des Moines and you have never been to the Fleur Cinema, you got to go. It's awesome.
Yeah, what's wrong with you?
Exactly. Why don't you guys tell us where we can follow you, talk to you, whatnot? Go ahead, John. We'll start with you.
I'll just plug my theater. FleurCinema.com, Twitter @FleurCinema, and Facebook Fleur Cinema. That's simple.
All right, Tom.
You can check out the best damn wedding films anywhere at weddingdayrewind.com. And I'm on @HomeDad on Twitter. I haven't really done that lately, though. But all my funny stuff is going up on Facebook right now.
Yeah, and I have to agree. They are the best damn wedding videos. We had a good... for anyone that doesn't know, Amanda, my longtime girlfriend, and I got married. And
really? Congratulations.
Yeah, we got married. I think so.
You never told me about this. What the?
And Tom was there.
That was you. I'm sorry.
Tom was there doing the video work, and it was awesome. And you can actually see some of it. Do you have it up on your site? It is. Some of the videos, yeah.
It is. You and Amanda got your own page.
Yeah. Go ahead, Gabe.
I have to second that. I saw some of Tom's work, and it was great work. And congratulations, Mike, to you and Amanda.
Oh, thank you.
You can follow me on Facebook right now. Someday I'll have a website up. I say that every episode, but sometime before the meteor hits, I will have a website up for people that follow me on
the hour before the meteor hits, you'll have it.
Right. Please, before you die, visit my site once.
All right, Mark.
I'm Jeremy Bentham 42 on Twitter, but you may not want to follow me till after the finals because the NBA finals. I fear I'm going to turn into an obnoxious Heat fan, and I don't think it's going to be pretty. So, don't follow me for a couple weeks. That's all I got.
You're also on Facebook, aren't you?
My account's open.
Okay. He's there.
He's there.
He's there.
You can DM me. I don't even think I have photos of myself. They're all Lost related.
Yeah.
A picture of Damon and Carlton and a polar bear.
Little Lost crazy. And just to let you guys know, Mark is crazy about Lost. He drove down to St. Louis last week, wasn't it? Last weekend?
And it was awesome.
Yeah. For a tweet up, right?
Yes. There's a certain faction, if you will, of Lost fans who aren't quite over the fact that the show's not on anymore. So to kind of mark the year anniversary of the last episode, everyone sort of got together and hung out and watched some Lost, and we were all really nerdy together. So it was very cool.
All right. Well, for Mark, Gabe, John, Tom, and myself, thanks for listening.
The person that finds her gets the namer, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
I want to name her Dottie after my wife. She's a vicious, life-sucking bitch from which there is no escape.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.